Hey guys, welcome back to Kuma Style Reviews. What we're taking a look at is the latest in the Sentinel Riobot line. This is Grendizer. Standing next to him is their previously released Geyser, and I believe it's actually been like 3 or 4 years since Geyser was released. It's pretty crazy how time flies, but it definitely set a standard for the company, and I think Geyser was the one that blew him up. Now, looking at the heights of these two, I'm going to start with Geyser first because this is pretty important. He stands at right there, he's kind of hunched in the back and stuff like that. He's standing at 7.5 inches tall. Realistically, he's about 7 3/4. So looking at Grendizer here, he is right at 7 on the dot. Now, obviously that's a problem because when it comes to the Mazinger family, Grendizer is actually the tallest. If you go by like official canon scale and stuff like that, this toy would have to be 1.5 feet tall to even start to be in scale with this Geyser. But him just plain not being taller is not only incorrect, but it's just plain weird. I mean, personally, I'm looking for relative scale, not exact scale and things like that. So that's off. Yeah, but with that being stated, we'll go ahead and get Geyser out of the way. In fact, we will get Grendizer a little bit out of the way, get him centered, because we're going to take a look before we dig into this piece at all of the accessories that come with them. Now take note, this is the full set. So this comes with the Spazer, which we'll take a look at over here. Alright, and I've already got it on its stand. It comes with some adapter pieces here. This is an adapter for one of the modes for the Spazer. These two are stand adapters. This is a stand specifically for Grendizer over here. And the basic accessories, a lot of different hands. So you've got these two hands here in the back. Those are specifically for his flight mode with the Spazer. 2 open hands as well as 2 closed but gripping hands for these weapons here. And of course the drills. So you've also got a box and instructions. Move this a little bit back. We'll actually give you guys a roundabout of this thing. Be sure zoomed in so you can see as much detail as possible. Of course, my camera is tilted right there. Pretty good stuff. Now, right off the bat, I will say there are 2 panels here that removed, and Sentinel's actually gotten a lot better about their panels. They make everything really easy to access. So this one's actually for the lights. Small switch there. You probably can't see it because it's black. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. On my end through the LCD it looks better. And there's also a panel down here which pulls out. And that's for the stand. So, since for the majority of this review, we'll actually be looking at it from the front, obviously, I'm going to keep those pieces out, just so I don't have to keep popping them on and off and things like that. And now you can see how it looks all lit up. Actually, turn off the light here. And there you go. There are the basics for this figure. During this review, we're going to take a look at all of the accessories. We're going to break down the figure itself. It's going to be a full-fledged review, so apologies in advance if this becomes a little bit long for you, but want to give a definitive review so you guys can know what you're purchasing, since this is a $400 piece that comes with a lot of stuff. Alright, so looking at the articulation on this guy, naturally because of how he interacts with the UFO Spazer, he has a lot of neck articulation, so I'll actually put it down like that because he has to be able to look up when he's flying in it. Alright, so there's an extender piece that you could see right there that lets the neck go up and down. But just for the natural neck movement, his head's on a ball joint there. So full 360. Lots of downward, upward movement. Pretty cool stuff. Shoulders have that big butterfly there. Always. And that's a neat thing. This part stays still, but the rest of the shoulder rotates around it. You can see like how it connects with that piece in the middle there, so that's neat. 360 right there. Double jointed elbows. One of the elbow joints is actually in the forearm itself, like Kaiser. Forearms do come off. If you want to go the rocket punch style route. Okay, so there's obviously rotation there where it pegs in. Now these wrists, they have rockers, and then the hands just peg in. Some multi-directional rocking, as well as swivel. Looking at the waist here, we're going to look at the waist itself first. You can tell that it's on a ball joint. Or, yeah, it's got to be on a ball joint because of that kind of movement right there. But because of the way that the waist is shaped, kind of wide, and the, I guess, the crotch plate not being a full circle, it doesn't have room to do that full 360 tilt. Now, these two sides, let's see if this gives them a little bit more room. These actually come up. No, because it doesn't change the crotch plate itself, but we'll see. Nope. No further. He does have another to give him further waist, swivel, as well as some ab crunch. Now this top one doesn't do a lot. It's the bottom waist piece that actually has more of the crunch there. So get the arm up so you can see. Back and forth. Okay. Now we went over these pieces that move here. Front, not a lot of back. Unfortunately, like Kaiser, like Shin Getter, a couple of Sentinel toys, that doesn't have room to really swing his hips back. And it's not like I want him donkey kicking anything, but just for that kind of heroic stance to get his hips back a little bit more, it'd be nice if there was a bit more room here. So that's unfortunate, but it's what it is. Not huge. All right, so the thighs, 360. Knees, double jointed. And he has a nice full knee in there. Let's look at the tons of angle tilt. It tilts both upwards and downwards. That's awesome. Movement in the foot. There's also front and back swing. I popped it off the ball joint there. You can see die-cast ball joints. Speaking of die-cast, it looks like the bulk of the die-cast is going to be throughout the frame and the feet. This is a lighter figure. And a lot of it's because the Spazer is also die-cast, so when you put it all together, it becomes a lot. I've played with it, transformed this thing all the way through, and I can tell you straight out, it's the right amount of heft when you've got it all put together. But either Grendizer or the Spazer by itself, kind of light. All right, so taking a look at some of its gimmicks here. I'm gonna do this arm because I've already taken it off once, a little bit more loose. But some Grendizer toys, like the future models, EX Goken, they actually have these triangle parts. They flip out for blades. This one is actually really smart, and honestly, every other Grendizer toy could do this. I'm sorry if this is not anything new or special. I will take the forearm off. Try to slide this piece off. There we go. So there are two indents in here and two pegs in the hole here, so you have to make sure to match them up. I'm going to put the hand back on first. All right, and just matching up those pegs with these. Okay, so got that. Pegging that arm back on. Simple enough. I will will tell you guys, it goes on a lot easier than it comes off for whatever reason. Right now I'm just trying to find those pegs to make sure they match up. Now, he comes with his drills as well. And they just peg in. There are holes on the inside. They're so exact to the size of the forearm that you really can't miss them. Sure. I will say this toy is extremely well balanced. It's fun to play with. Alright, so we have that. Now taking these two pieces off, they can actually peg in to the wings on the Spazer. Now getting back to this guy. Alright, so if you're familiar with Grendizer, if you're familiar with, in my head that came out kind of jarbled, so wanted to repeat myself. But these come off. They're just two small pegs that peg into the front and back. And the plastic's a bit flexible, but still, certainly be careful. Slide right off, okay? I'm gonna make sure to attach the hands made for holding his weapons. And now, of course, you've got the option to have them with both, or use this connector piece here. And I honestly think at this point that Sentinel, they're just plain masters of butterflying shoulders. And of course I'm having problems now. The curse of the rolling camera. Alright. Let's see. Actually. There's that. And I've got the base here. I'm using the stand specifically for Grendizer. It comes with an adapter. And both the base and the stand piece, they're standard stuff. They're just that stand for larger figures. And this just pegs into that back slit there that we looked at. And even without tightening any of the screws or anything like that, it holds pretty well. But of course, if you really want that, you know, that next level of support, then take out a screwdriver, tighten the screws that are at the joints and things like that. But there he is with the stand. Alright, now we're just taking a look at the Spazer. Aesthetically, I think that this is it's so simple and established that it's a pretty hard piece to fuck up. But regardless, I think they did a bang-up job on this one. It looks great. And we already went over the fact that the drills can be stored on there. Peg on and off. And outside of that, I mean, it really, in itself, doesn't do much, even though it has a couple of gimmicks here. The first one is Grendizer, being able to use it for transport. So, let's take a look at that. And just really quick, when it comes to this, I can feel die-cast underneath, I can feel die-cast in the back here, but it's not a heavy piece in itself. It's really not, it feels right, if that makes sense. Now, a couple of things. These wings, they don't come attached. Get those pegged out. You just peg each side in. Simple. And also, we're gonna go over it, because you start by removing the front here. Loosening up these. They're pegs, light pegs, on the top and bottom. All of this comes out. So these pieces here, these black parts, these come packed separately too. I did not know if they even stored inside of there until I transformed Grendizer. So we start by putting on those feet. Okay. And these are his leg covers. They're going to stay on for the remainder of this time, because he'll also use them in the Exosuit Mode, which is awesome. Okay. And we're basically putting it back how we found it. So to do that, it's kind of an over-under type deal. So you just rotate his legs and, you know, feel it out. Oh, and the feet have to be rotated backwards. Yes. Now I'll tell you, even though this isn't necessarily hard, once you get it, you got it. This is the hardest part of the transformation. It's really all pretty simple. So just make sure that's nice and flush. Now I'm gonna go outside the order of the instructions. Of course I have it, then I fiddle around and undo it because I'm awesome. But since you already have it here, this big panel right here, these two pieces attached to those two pegs, well, these two pegs attached to these female ends or whatever. So we're just gonna do that now. So we've already got that how he's supposed to be. All right, we're gonna T-pose this guy. And since that balances fairly well, we'll get him out of the way. This piece is not going back on, so say goodbye to the front of that. All right, we're just gonna spread those out. These pieces rotate there. If they are loose or anything like that, they're just Phillips heads. No, they're star screws or whatever, but they're pretty common. All right. Oh. While I knock stuff over. There's a peg piece here that's going to go in his back. You don't bring this big lever down. That's not until the next transformation. It's just that top piece there. All right. So we peg that into his back. All right. There are two female pegs there, and you can't see them, but underneath the thrusters, there are two male pegs, and they just peg in. So boom, and I'm just making sure that I am still adjusted here, which I'm not. So I'm actually going to start a little bit fresh, because it's so much easier if you've got that all together first, trust me. Okay, so pegging that part in again, and I'm just showing you this mistake instead of editing it out, because it's like, what if you get the same hiccup? Alright, try to keep that pegged in, get those adjusted. And basically, what you're gonna do, you use this as a guide, and then there are pegs on these two pieces, as well as these two pieces, okay? That, relatively lined up. This, relatively lined back up. One, two, make sure that that's pegged. And there are so many pegs and things for this to kind of friction on that it does all kind of come together. So the hard part is just kind of holding it while you get everything all sandwiched back up. So okay, we've got those. Now we've got that, and we're rocking. All right. And you can do one side at a time. But unfortunately for me, I haven't gotten to the point where this is natural. All right, and now we've got those pieces pushed back in. I already had these flat hands, they have pegs, they go in here. So you want to do it so that the elbow joints are facing downwards so that you can bring it down and the hands just naturally peg in. So bicep swivel. And get that. There we go. And now, get that head pointed up. All right, and we are golden. Now let's zoom in, see how it looks. And unfortunately, this is a tough call because it's a first world problem. It looks so good in this mode that it's hard for me to decide my favorite. Obviously, it's a fun toy, very posable and things like that in its own right, but this just looks good. I actually bought multiples. So when I get to unboxing the others and stuff like that, I'll have the option of all three modes. But yeah, I mean, not option, but I'll have all three modes displayed or whatever. But this looks good. It's definitely worth buying the set with the Spazer. It adds a lot to it. Okay, now we're putting it in the Exosuit mode, which is honestly very easy in comparison to all the fitting and stuff like that we had to do just in this. So basically, we're just taking everything, we're loosening it all up, getting those out of the way. You can keep those on if you want, but they're just kind of in the way. Alright. Making sure everything's unpegged. Removing these pieces out of the way. And then just unpegging it. Alright. Get that out of the way. That was just one of the extra hands that fell on the floor there. Okay. Now, we've already got the foot armor on. So we're just separating his legs. I'm going to go ahead and change out his hands here. we'll get him out of the way. We'll actually do this part first. So this is in halves, but it's held on together by 2 pegs. They don't feel fragile or anything like that, but definitely try to push both sides out at the same time so you don't stress or break one of these off. All right. So from there are 2 more pegs, female ends. 1, 2. If I could be awesome and do it correctly, that'd be great. I had it upside down. Okay, so there's that. There's that. Now we're going into transforming this guy itself. This just loosens up. This is a hinge joint. And there's a small peg here. And you just peg that part right there. This, bring it down now. And that's how it's going to peg into his back. And now, get to transform the arms. Kind of bring those up. The wings, they just flip. And bend back, flip, bend back. Arms pull out on each side. You can pull the hands out now. Okay. Rotate them around. And then the hands themselves come out. Okay. And you can do fiddling with and adjusting once you've got all of it all put together, because you're going to see now the elbows, the shoulders, all of that good stuff. Okay. And the shoulders, well, that just pegged out. The arms, the swing down, really tight. So just make sure to watch out for that. And then from there, just peg it into his back. Then make sure that that's pegged up again. There we go. Now the Spazer is an exosuit of sorts. Alright, so I'm actually recording this after the rest of the video was done, so this is going to come in at kind of an odd time. I just have to see where to fit it in. But I forgot to show an additional part on this exo armor. It comes with this adapter here. You just peg it in right there, and that piece that we took off, the bottom half of the Spazer, it just pegs in there. And it's kind of like a brass knuckle shield type deal. We'll get a lot more pictures of that in the, written review and gallery on kumastyle.com, but just wanted to show that and not forget it. Alright, I'm doing another comparison with Riobot Kaiser, because even though it adds some height to Grendizer, it's definitely not as tall as it should be. Now it's about 7 1/8 inches tall. I mean, it fits into the feet armor here pretty deep, so it really doesn't add anything height wise, but it's what it is. And another thing I will say, definitely before you transform and put the back armor on, take that panel off just so you have access to the light switch and stuff like that in case you want to use it. Honestly, I could even still access it with my finger. There's more than enough space, but it's hard to get that panel off with the backpack on. Alright, now looking at what these do, they're basically just arms, so don't expect any articulation in the back. He himself doesn't lose any articulation, or it. Alright, so these shoulders do have swivel. Admittedly, not a ton, just because of how they interact. You have to pull them out a bit to access that rotation. See what I'm saying? Oh, get that peg back on. So just be mindful of that. And try to brace it by the back too, because the armor doesn't pop off easy, but it can pop out while you're playing. Get his neck adjusted there. But okay. The arm, really tight, but swings in and out. Rotates. Looks like a full 360 there. Make sure you guys can see. That elbow bend, really deep elbow bend. And that's pretty much it for up there. Now it's got these wrists that go in and out. Can actually 360. The hand itself, up and down. Each of the fingers, separate articulation. So 3 points of articulation as well as swing. The thumb is on a ball joint, but it just goes around in circles. And each of the fingers can actually go all the way in and out individually, but no spread at the fingers. So just to get them into something quick. Start moving these down. Now I will tell you, this is a fun piece to play with. I do that, I do that. All right. And I mean, there you go. You know what? I'll go ahead and cut it out here. This has been a video review for the latest in the Sentinel Riobot line. This is Grendizer. This has been the full Grendizer and Spazer set. Now, you can buy Grendizer by itself for, I think, significantly cheaper, like $90 or so. Not sure? Look it up. Check the prices for yourself at your favorite retailer. But I highly recommend, if you're going to spend the money on this, buy the full set with the Spazer. I mean, it's fun, it's innovative, and honestly, support companies doing stuff that's different like this, different in a positive way, because you don't get a lot of it. As for Grendizer itself, I will say it's my favorite Grendizer toy to date out of the whole two I own, the other being the Future Models EX Goken one. Why? Because this is a lot of fun. In fact, this might be the most fun I've had with a Sentinel toy to date, and I have the majority of them. It's an awesome piece, but the only problem is the height. You know, it's a big deal, and it's blatantly too short. I understand having this in hand now to where you see Grendizer and you're like, okay, you can make him taller, but it's not just making him taller. It's making the whole toy larger. So it's not just increasing the height, it's increasing the thickness. So you got more plastic, more die cast, and it's not just Grendizer. Now you've got to make the spacer bigger, and it can lead to a dramatic increase in cost. And even with that though, I would have paid another, I guess, $50 to $100 or something like that just to have it the proper size, because this has the potential to be that definitive Grendizer toy, if not for the height. Outside of that, it's perfect. I love the look of it. I don't like the paneling on it as much as Kaiser, but it still looks decent. The proportions are a lot better than they looked in pictures to me. And the Spazer, fuck, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's fun, even when it comes to the heft and things like that. I'm on some Forbes and things, and it is light on diecast. It's light on diecast between the two, but together, all of it, it's perfect, because you've got all of this going on. The toy isn't falling over. The joints aren't going weak or anything like that. I'm not uncomfortable playing with it, transforming it, etc., etc. And it's hella hefty all together. And that's what it is when you have to look at it as the sum of as part of the sum of the whole, you know? So yes, Grendizer's light. Yeah, the Spazer's kind of light. The Spazer's a little bit more hefty, but altogether that's where it's perfect, and these are meant to go together. together. So it's what it is. Like it, don't like it, your collection, do whatever you want. I absolutely love this piece. I hate how it displays next to Mazinkaiser, but it's what it is. Anyway, this has been another Kuma style review. Let me know what you guys think of this in the comment section. Did you buy it? Did you not buy it? Why'd you buy it? Why didn't you buy it? What do you think of it either way? What do you think of this review? What can I do? Also, check out the full written breakdown and gallery on kumastyle.com. Link will be in the description. And, of course, like, share, and subscribe. This has been a little bit longer of a review, but a lot more in-depth than normal, a lot more going on than normal pieces that I get. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.